Meeting, or I'm going to call to order the meeting. Let's make sure that's updated. Okay. Is there approval of the agenda?
I move the Board of Education approve the agenda for the October 9th, 2023 meeting.
I second.
Jones,
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes.
Van,
Yes.
Byers, Kadu Blackwood.
Yes.
Gordon Ross.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
The motion passes 7-0.
Okay, we'll move to special recognition. Dr. Lewis?
Awesome. Good evening, board members, members of the community, to our staff. I want to start today's recognition off. We actually had this scheduled for National Security Officers Week, which took place before our September 25th board meeting. During that week, we wanted to acknowledge our security officers that support our scholars and our staff. And so I want to definitely acknowledge the work of our amazing security officers in both Lawrence High and Free State. They are Jeffrey Coulter, Derek Johnson. When I call your name, please come forward. Jeffrey Coulter, I know some of them are not here. Jeffrey Coulter, Derek Johnson, and Spencer Bonner. Those are at Lawrence High School. And D. Kemp, Chris Coulter, and Ethan Hamill at Free State. Let's give them hands as they come forward. These certainly are the district staff members that we see as community members, as parents, as students. When we first enter our high school, they are well-known, well-liked. They're always smiling. There we go. They're always smiling. When I was a child, I used to think that my mom had eyes in the back of her head, and sometimes some of my elementary teachers used to think that they had eyes in the back of their head. Well, these gentlemen do have eyes in the back of their head because they know their schools and their students extremely well. They anticipate things before they happen and are often able to intervene. When things happen, they are the in-house first responders. They are involved in the lives of our students, their activities, their support services provided at the schools. They are those, what I often talk about as that additional caring adult, and for the most part, these are they. And when it comes to our students connecting with individuals, they are those caring adults that are making a difference in the lives of our scholars. And so we want to thank you for being a hugely important part of Lawrence Public Schools, Free State, and Lawrence High. Ms. McInerney, would you like to share a few
Yes,
words?
I'm Amy McInerney, principal at Free State, and just a few brief words, not a lot different than what Dr. Lewis already said, but I have the privilege of working with these gentlemen every day, and day in and day out. They have our students' best interests at heart. They know the camera system inside and out, and they, like Dr. Lewis said, they can anticipate things. They keep our students safe. They're an integral part of being mentors to some of our students as well. They've turned a lot of kids around, and we're thankful for that. They also work a lot of extra duty hours so that our activities and events are safe as well. So again, we appreciate all that you guys do for us and our kids.
Thank you.
Thank you for your.
Thank you very good.
We appreciate you.
Sure, sir.
Thank you. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Buddy.
Hey, thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. We're certainly fortunate to have our security officers that are supporting our schools. Also, this evening, our partners with the Lawrence, Kansas Police Department are here. We are really secure tonight, I will tell you that. Our partners, including Lieutenant Myron Grady. This started out as an opportunity this year to introduce this year's school resource officers and their assignments, which I would like them to do, to come forward and introduce themselves, their school assignment. First, I want to take this opportunity to thank them and congratulate them. Our LKPD's SRO program was one of 10 in the nation to receive the National Association of School Resource Officers, or NASRO's, Model Agency Award. This honor is presented to agencies that exemplify the NASRO triad model of training, policies and standards which ensure professional service to our schools and the community. NASRO lauded the Lawrence SRO team's creative and innovative approach to school-based policing. Our school district is truly fortunate to partner with our Lawrence, Kansas Police Department, including Chief Lockhart. In his absence, he would be here, but he's ill this evening. And really want to thank him for placing an SRO at each of our middle schools and high schools. These individuals build positive relationships with students and staff. They support students, staff, and families with safety questions and concerns, and they provide immediate law enforcement assistance when it is needed. The SROs joined our staff in presenting several Let's Talk Safety community conversations, including the most recent forums for our high schools and community about the dangers of fentanyl, which included Chief Lockhart and members of the FBI Kansas City Division. The SROs lead internet safety seminars for our schools and communities and offer a summer police camp for kids, and this year, a teen police academy. Also want to thank Officer James Browning for bringing us the Handle with Care program. It continues to make a difference in the lives of our scholars and their families who have most recently experienced traumatic events. Principals and teachers are given the heads up with the Handle with Care program to support services, so that support services can be ready and in place as needed. In addition to the national award honoring the SRO team, the Kansas Juvenile Officers Association named Corporal Casey Wiltz its Kansas School Resource Officer of the Year. This is the second consecutive year that Lawrence School Resource Officers earned this award because Officer Shelby Brohard received this honor last year. Corporal Wiltz has been a wonderful addition to Free State. Students, staff, and school families know and trust her. She is firm and fair in her handling of challenging situations, and all of her excellent relationship-building skills prevent minor issues from becoming major ones. And so I want to thank you to Officer Wiltz and the entire SRO team for all that you do. Many of you know I had the opportunity to serve on the Kansas Governor's criminal justice. No, it wasn't. Yeah, criminal justice. What was it? CREJ. Anyway, I served on the Governor's Commission with her report that was looking at policing throughout the state. And there was a lot of researchers from around the country that came in on the evening that we talked about police in schools. And I was fortunate enough to share the model that we have here in Lawrence, which is not typical around the country. Typically around the country, school districts or police departments place SROs in a building for maybe a year. And then just rotate them. There's a commitment here of at least 4 years, I do believe, for these SROs, and so that way they can see a freshman class through graduation. In addition, the extensive training that they go through, the bias-based police training, and they've also been a part of our equity training as well. So we're super excited for our SROs. And so at this time, I'll let you introduce Lieutenant Grady. You want to introduce the team or have them introduce themselves?
I will let them introduce themselves. Or anything, so I don't want to embarrass us and say something silly, but I would be remiss in not taking a quick opportunity to say thank you for honoring my folks here tonight, because they really do a great job, and I couldn't do what I do with my daily routine without these guys. So my leadership style is to have good people and put them to work and let them do what they do. And then they came up with all the great ideas and did all the things that got us a little bit of recognition, national recognition. But I also want to say thank you to the partnership and the relationships that we have with the USD 497 that allow us inside your schools to do our job. So we couldn't do without you. So thank you.
My name's Corporal Collado, and I am the outgoing SRO at the best high school in Lawrence, LHS. It's a fact. I said it. It's in the public now.
Dean Kempinen. I was at Liberty Memorial Central Middle School last year, and now I'm at the best high school in Lawrence High School.
That's inaccurate. So I am at Free State, as everyone in the back knows, is the best high school in Lawrence. Thank you.
And I'm Officer Lindsay Bishop. I am at West Middle School, and we all know that West is best.
James Browning. I'm at Billy Mills Middle School.
I am Bailey Salisbury, and I am the SRO at Southwest Middle School. And I'll just settle this for all of us by just saying the West Side is the best side.
I am Dan Affolter. I am at Liberty Memorial Central Middle School, but I went to West and I graduated from Free State, and all the schools are the best.
It's a little competitive there. Thank you all so much for all that you do to keep our staff and students safe. So thank you.
Hey, I just want to say two things real quick. So one, I want to shout out a former Scout Troop 55 alumni. So that's cool. And then this is not supposed to be emotional. This is really weird. I want to give a shout out to James Browning. So I was at Lawrence High at a volleyball event just last week, and just wanted to emphasize that our SROs are there to do more than just police work or community engagement. And I was there when there was a freak accident where a volleyball official got hit in the head by a volleyball that they were not expecting when they were kneeling down, and they ended up briefly collapsing on the floor of the gym. And he was the first person that got to them from across the gym and kneeled down and stayed there to make sure that they were okay. And I just wanted to make sure that he was recognized for that, because he just did it because that's just who he is. That's what he's trained to do. And I just wanted to make sure that he was recognized for that.
Hi, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your.
Thank you.
We don't have to say what
Thank you. Thank you.
Good, how are you?
Oh, yeah, Sergeant Drew Finley. It's gone. And you gave me the name, sorry.
You ready, Dr. Lewis?
Special recognition, yeah.
Okay. So we're going to move on to the report of the superintendent of the schools. Dr. Lewis? Oh, what?
Retirement.
Yes, we do have additional special recognitions. This is our first since I've been on serving as president, and Bob's first special recognitions for retirement.
So bear with us. The Board of Education recognizes the following staff members with sincere appreciation for their years of service and devotion to this community and its schools. Joni Appleman with 24 years, Cheryl Bernard for 33 years, Thomas Hunt for 27 years, Megan Hurt for 26 years, Wilson Kilmer for 13 years, Kendra Mertz, 30 years, Paul Morgenroth for 24 years, and Julie Cole for 1.5 years.
Thank you, Bob. Dr. Lewis.
Okay. Thank you. Several items to share this evening. First, I want to wish Happy Indigenous Peoples Day to all of our staff, students, families of our indigenous communities. I also want to acknowledge our board members, including Paula Van and Carol Cadu Blackwood. Thank you so much for your service on the board. And I would ask that I definitely want to be respectful of some of the names that I'm going to call, so if I mispronounce them, please feel free to correct me. You know, it has become more common lately to acknowledge the First Peoples of a given geographic area when conducting a public meeting by doing a land acknowledgement. The traditional nations that call this area home at the time of Kansas statehood include the Pawnee, Kaw, and Osage. As the state formed and colonized and treaties were established, these tribes were moved from their homelands in Kansas to Oklahoma and elsewhere. A second group of nations have given our region a second group of nations have given our region many place names that bear their agencies today, their agencies and legacies today. These include the Ottawa from Michigan, the Shawnee from Ohio, the Muncie, related to the Lenape of Delaware, from New York, New Jersey area, the Wyandotte from Ohio, and more. Currently, there are 4 nations that reside in this state, all of which were removed from elsewhere. These are the Prairie Band Potawatomi from the Great Lakes region, being one of the several bands of Potawatomi located in the United States and Canada. The Kickapoo from the Kickapoo lived in northwest Ohio and southern Michigan in the areas of Lake Erie and Lake Michigan. The Sac and Fox of Missouri and Kansas and Nebraska from Illinois. And the Iowa tribe of Kansas and Nebraska from Iowa and the northern Missouri. Finally, Lawrence is known throughout Indian country for its intertribal community, which thrives because of Haskell Indian Nations University's presence in Lawrence. The intertribal community represents around 100 nations from all over Turtle Island. The educational opportunities provided by Haskell, as well as our NAS, or Native American Student Services, are made possible by the partial fulfillment of treaty obligations of the United States federal government's promises to Indian nations. All of these nations and people of these nations flourish and contribute to our community at large, and we acknowledge those who have gone before us and those that will continue their journey after ours has ended. So we want to salute our Indigenous peoples on Indigenous Peoples Day. A lot of people don't know this, but Lawrence Public Schools has the second highest number of Native American students in the state. We are second to Wichita, and so we're so fortunate to have our Native American Student Services, who I shared at a previous board meeting, has seen over 150 families so far since moving out to Broken Arrow, and we want to honor all of our Native Americans on this day. Special thanks to it was mentioned earlier, special thanks to Deerfield Principal Joni Appleman for 24 years of school administration services in the district, including 18 years at Deerfield and 6 years at Woodlawn and the former Grant School. Joni has announced that she plans to retire at the end of this school year. She has built a solid relationship and a close-knit family with the staff and families at Deerfield, and she is a wealth of guidance, information, resources for her colleagues. And just a quick fact, Deerfield has been open for a while, and Joni is only the 3rd principal there at Deerfield. So definitely going to miss Joni, but we definitely want to congratulate her on her retirement. Nick Mershon, a student at our Community Connections at Pinckney, won a 2023 Outstanding Student Technology Award by Infinitec. Nick uses an eye gaze-operated augmentative and alternative communication device as he gets work done, as he experiences as he's a greeter at LMH Health. The device makes it possible for him to communicate with visitors and give directions. His teachers, Jamie Nickel, a teacher of the deaf, works with Nick and nominated him for this award. So can we give a huge round of applause for Nick? That is just awesome. Congratulations, Nick. During the Lawrence Schools Foundation Community Education Breakfast, the foundation received a check for $35,000 from Leap Partner Truity Credit Union. I want to thank Truity Credit Union for providing these funds to continue to help us support our Jayhawk Blueprint scholarships, close opportunity gaps, and ensure equitable access and opportunity for all students. In addition, these funds will support professional development opportunities for our staff. There have been a number of candidate forums held of late. If you have missed them, the Chamber will host a school board candidate forum at 7:15 a.m. This Wednesday at Arterra Event Gallery. Breakfast is included for the $15 for Chamber members and $20 for members of the public. The last day to register to vote is Tuesday, October 17th, and advance voting by mail and in person begins on October 18th. Next week, on October 19th, the Lead Center will host the district's annual College and Career Night from 6 to 8 p.m. We encourage all juniors and seniors and their caregivers to attend. Lawrence Public Schools will work with Dr. Brad Neuenswander of KU's Achievement and Assessment Institute to facilitate Portrait of a Graduate public input sessions for students, staff, and community members to assist us in expanding our strategic plan. We will ask the community what skills and experiences all graduates of Lawrence Public Schools need to thrive in college, careers, and in life. We are inviting students and staff to individual input sessions. The community input sessions are on November 7th at Free State and November the 9th at Lawrence High. Both are from 6 to 7:30 p.m. We hope parents, caregivers, and community members, community partners rather, will participate in one of these community sessions. And I may be still in Kelly's thunder. Okay, well, I'll let you share that. On October 30th is the first Beyond the Boardroom. This is a time for community members to drop by and just have an informal conversation with our board members and our board members of the school board. This opportunity begins at 7:30 on October 30th at Swegler Library following their PTA meeting. So again, that's October 30th at 7:30 in the Swegler Library right after their PTA meeting. While it's being held at Swegler, anyone interested is certainly welcome to stop by, and more to come from Kelly on that in just a moment. The district has done a great job of welcoming staff back at the beginning of the school year during fall convocation, which is also our fall kickoff. Realizing that the community is not a part of that event, I want to invite the public to my State of the Schools address from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. on October 24th. At the Liberty Memorial Central Middle School Auditorium. All are welcome. We will have 2 to 3 student music groups performing that evening as well. The Lawrence Public Library Gallery is displaying the work of more than 200 of our elementary students throughout the month of October. So I want to encourage everyone to go by and take a look. The Marching Firebirds competed in the Emporia State Marching Festival last Wednesday, earning a 1 rating. Second in their division and third overall out of 18 bands. Eric Bradshaw and Melissa Smith are the Free State High School band directors, so congratulations to the Marching Firebirds. Free State's debate students Sophie Racy and Connor Brown qualified for the prestigious Tournament of Champions hosted by the University of Kentucky each May. Meanwhile, we learned from KU that John Marshall, an alumnus of Free State, continues his debate success there. He and his KU debate partner placed third at the national tournament called the J.W. Patterson Debate Tournament, which is also hosted at the University of Kentucky. The Free State and Lawrence High Spirit Squads, along with all the middle school cheer teams, are hosting a hygiene supply drive at Free State and Lawrence High game this coming Friday night. That's the City Showdown. Attendees are asked to please bring a donation of hygiene supplies to support the needs of students and families. Liberty Memorial Central Middle School invites the Mustang Choir alumni to return and sing with former directors Dr. Patricia Boyd and Kevin Hart, not the famous Kevin Hart, but a Kevin Hart, former director there, for the school's 100th anniversary celebration. This will be at 2 p.m. on November the 12th. Our district social media pages include a sign-up link for the alumni choir and a note about rehearsals that are scheduled at 4 p.m. on November the 11th. And then lastly, a reminder that to school families that there is no school on Friday due to the end of the first quarter of the school year. Our staff will use this time for recording and reporting of student progress, conference preparations, professional development, and planning. That's all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. So we'll move on to the report of the president of the board. As Dr. Lewis did, I'll take a moment to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day. This is a day set aside to focus and reflect on the history, contributions, and knowledge of Indigenous people who thrive today in spite of colonial dispossession and violence. Colonies created by European ancestors, my European ancestors from Portugal, Spain, France, the Netherlands, and England created enormous loss of lands and life for Indigenous nations. Today, Indigenous nations are broadly represented locally at Haskell University and throughout our school communities. I'm grateful for their contributions to Lawrence Public Schools, which is represented and supported through NAS, our Native American Student Services. The board has committed to continue and expand our support of NAS through retaining the NAS coordinator position as a 12-month position and potentially looking at what additional supports they may need in terms of staffing, and growing program in and outside of the new Broken Arrow location, which should include strengthening the Haskell USD 497 partnership. I extend gratitude to Carol Cadu Blackwood and Paula Van for their contributions to these efforts and for promoting and including Indigenous perspectives in Lawrence Public Schools and on the board. I was reminded by a colleague in my department that action steps toward allyship include attending and learning more. So on Friday, October 13th, from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Lawrence Public Library, I'll be attending the Drummond Community Round Dance. And from 6:30 to 8 p.m., there's a screening and Q&A of Tending the Wild documentary. It focuses on traditional ecological knowledge of Indigenous people of California and how their knowledge shapes what we know today in the face of a changing environment. So moving on to my committee assignments, the policy committee meets on October 16th at 4 p.m. here at the ESC. It's an open meeting and all are invited to attend. We will be looking at JBCC enrollment of non-resident students. This is new and requires a public hearing before board action, which will occur at our next board meeting. It is also related to our continued contract with RSP, which Dr. Engelbrick will be discussing later in new business. We'll also be looking at, in conjunction with that JBC, which is our enrollment policy, IFCC is the overnight accommodations policy, and the policy committee continues to work on that and is seeking input from communities impacted by that. A hearing for, I mentioned the hearing for JBCC, in case I didn't mention, is on 10/23. The certified negotiation team met on Thursday. We reviewed interest items, which were included in the Friday update from Dr. Lewis for the board, but among those items were issues related to horizontal movement. A small committee is starting to work on that and other salary issues. Additionally, we heard a brief update from the middle school schedule committee. There are a lot of opportunities to strengthen the contract this year, and I look forward to working with administration and LEA leadership to do so. And then, as Dr. Lewis said, we're meeting for Beyond the boardroom, which I'm extremely excited for, and I want to say thank you directly to Julie Boyle for helping us to coordinate those and being intentional about reaching out first to Schwegler, which is a building that has families that were impacted by school closure last year, and I appreciate your guidance on that. I also look forward to meeting with folks at the Community Connections at Pinckney, and to board colleagues. Bob and I have, as you remember, agreed to make sure that there's board representation at each of these meetings. We hope that you're able to join us as well, and we look forward to providing you updates in case you are not able to make it. Okay, so we'll now move on to public comment. Before we get started, I wanted to see, we had two folks that were going to join us, Kelsey Billings and Britton Kennington are either here. I don't see them, so we might not have public comment. Is there any other public comment? Okay, we'll move on to board commentary, and I'll look down to see, I see GR, Shannon, others. Carol, do you want to start, Carol?
You go ahead.
Go ahead, okay, GR.
Yeah. Just a couple things. So was able to attend the Lawrence Schools Foundation on the 29th, always one of my favorite events. I have learned this year that it is an event that brings some animosity to my house, because my current senior at Lawrence High School has now been twice as a member of the Lawrence High Band, and my 20-year-old daughter, the one time she was supposed to go as a member of the Lawrence High Band, she overslept and didn't get to go, and he points out to her how awesome it is and laughs in her face that she didn't get to go. So that was a great experience that weekend. Also attended the negotiations meeting on the 5th with Kelly, everything that Kelly said, and I will also add we got also an update from the calendar committee as well on some of the work that they were doing. And then this last weekend had a great opportunity with two of my site council schools. Woodlawn had a carnival on Saturday, and so I got to spend an hour in a book walk activity. It's kind of like a cakewalk. So played the same Taylor Swift song over and over and over again while kids walked around in a circle, and was amazed at the number of kids who did the activity again and again and never quite figured out that they always won a free book. So that was cool. And then last night at Langston Hughes, they had a chili cook-off and pickleball tournament, and I got to judge 13 different chilies at Langston Hughes, so that was kind of fun. And then real quick, we've got some things on the consent agenda from facilities. We need to replace one of the 2 boilers at Deerfield. It's older, and the fact that it's older, it makes it kind of difficult or impossible to attain parts. So replacement is the only viable option. We need to renew our license agreement for Parchment. Parchment is a piece of software that we use to make credentialing and transcripts digital and portable and shareable. We've used it since 2013, and we're very happy with the product, so we're going to renew that. And then Talent Ed is another piece of software that we're going to renew, and it's a HR software that we use to help manage online applications, and it's beneficial to our HR department.
I'll go. So I attended the Free State Site Council was the first meeting of the year. We focused on the meaning or the definition of chronic absenteeism and what that meant for Free State High School. We looked at some attendance data and talked about how that will be a focus in this next year. And then we reviewed the 3 goals over 3 years. So it was a pretty short meeting. It was nice to see some new parents attending the site council. So our next meeting is on October 25th, and we will be focusing on student achievement, new graduation requirements, and behavior data. So I attended the district site council with Patrick Kelly and staff. We just reviewed the needs assessment, the process, the KISA process, and went over the district goal number 1, academic achievement. Next time I will be prepared to do some homework for that. So it was lots of learning for the district site council. And thank you to the school board for recognizing Indigenous Peoples Day and recognizing both Carol and I. I appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, GR. Okay, let's see. I'm going to try and be brief. I attended the quarterly Character Strong Assembly held on September 27th. The theme was responsibility, and while I'm not on the quarterly site council committee, I still get invited to quarterly events as I'm a quarterly alumna. So yeah, that was it's always fun to go. I call it home. And I'd like to thank Ruben Littlehead and his family for their presentations of the jingle dress, the war dance, and the traditional dances. And Mr. Byers and I attended the Equity Advisory Council last week. We discussed efforts or methods to promote reading throughout our schools, especially our littles. And October 3rd, I was a guest reader along, we're on the list, Shannon and I and GR, we are on the list. We have been guest readers for Miss Ashley Smith's 4th grade class. And I'd like to thank their class for their attention, their questions, and it was just fun to get back in there. So now yes, this is why you do it, because it was just fun. I've got a lot of questions and hugs, and it was just good to be back in that setting. And I'm excited about being invited again tomorrow as a guest reader, and Mrs. Ashley Smith's class is participating in a #classroom book a day. They are listening to adults read 1 picture book every single day with a goal of at least 180 books by the last day of school. And I attended the Lawrence High School Honor of Induction on October 1st. September 27th, what did I do? I attended the Ad Hoc Indigenous Curriculum Committee that was held virtually. While we did not receive the Spencer Grant, it was a blow to our committee, but the Ad Hoc Committee will continue efforts to elevate Indigenous curriculum within the district. So thank you for that land acknowledgement. And the final piece that we have been working on for at least 4 years is to make that land acknowledgement actionable. As with any land acknowledgement, we ask that it be actionable. So we look forward to continuing in that effort. So thank you, and thank you, Paula. Let's see, and finally, on Wednesday, The Lawrence Public Library will be hosting a hosting event for the Rainbow Kids and Families and partnering with the ACLU of Kansas to host a workshop on the protection of LGBTQIA+ students within the K-12 Tuesday. Is that tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay, it's tomorrow. Thank you. And so you're going to go?
Yeah.
Okay. So the workshop agenda includes an hour-long presentation by representatives of the ACLU with time for questions afterwards. The workshop will be geared towards students in K-12 classrooms, and although most of the toolkit that we will be going over focuses on students' rights at public and charter schools, private schools, and students might also have protections if their schools receive federal funding within their school zone policies or under Kansas law. Thank you for that clarification. Thank you.
Just wanted to share on a couple of activities in the last couple of weeks. Thank you to the Jayhawk Rotary for inviting us to share a district update. I was pleased to do that on the 28th of September. In addition, I also was able to attend the Schools Foundation Community Education Breakfast and hear from distinguished LHS alumni, Jared Stone. It was a lot of fun. I am the board liaison to the Schools Foundation this year, and the breakfast was extremely successful in raising funds for their various ways that they support our district, including for the ICANN, the Angel Network fund that provides support for students and families who have immediate and urgent needs. So thank you to our community and to the breakfast sponsors who really stepped up this year in an amazing way. I was pleased to give opening remarks on October 3rd to the USD 497 Middle School Future City Leadership Retreat that was held here in the ESC. There were about approximately 150 staff and middle school students who attended that day-long leadership retreat. And so I got to kick off the morning and spend a little bit of time listening from some of the really amazing professional speakers that they had come and talk with the students about their issues related to their theme of the year, which is electrifying the future. So that was a lot of fun. And then also that morning and afternoon, I was able to attend several hours of the Special Committee on Education hearing that was happening. That committee met on last Monday and Tuesday, and again today, and they will be meeting again tomorrow. I just wanted to share with my fellow board members and the community some things that I heard while I was there that were really concerning. There are several legislators on the committee who I repeatedly heard say things that were anti-public education and anti-public school. In addition, there were conferees who were invited by the committee to attend, including one that is a representative from a Koch brothers funded organization who also said some of these things that I'm about to share. Some of the things that they shared incorrectly, in my opinion, are things such as school district graduation rates are meaningless. They don't have any bearing on student success. We should be looking at private schools as a model for what public schools do because private schools do it better. Governor Kelly should have signed the Parents' Bill of Rights because school districts are not appropriately working with parents and informing them about what's going on in schools. The struggles that our school districts are having are not because we've been chronically underfunded for the last decade plus. It's because school boards and district administrators are mismanaging their budgets. School districts spend too much money on things that aren't directly related to the classroom, including professional services. Instead of fully funding the local option budget, school boards should be focused on cutting taxes. District needs assessments are not being done according to statute by districts. And lastly, school districts are rampantly misspending at-risk funds, according to a legislative post-audit report from this summer. And I want to say, first of all, that these are talking points that are being provided by voucher and privatization proponents. Those talking points are misleading and at times outright deceitful. As an example, after listening to the repeated negative comments about the at-risk audit, I actually went and read the audit myself. and the summary, and it's interesting what I found when I looked at it. I found that they audited 20 districts across the state. Lawrence Public Schools was not one of the 20, so we were not audited as part of this sampling that they did. Out of the 20 districts they looked at, 11 of those districts were 100% compliant with the statute. Every expenditure that the auditors looked at was 100% compliant. Another 3 or 4 of those, about 70% or more of their expenditures were compliant, so not perfect, but not awful. There were a small number of districts in that audit that did have some struggles. But interestingly, the district that had the largest dollar amount of non-compliant expenditures was Wichita Public Schools. And you know what they were spending their at-risk funds on? They were spending their at-risk funds on an adult education diploma completion services program. Now, that is apparently not a qualifying expense under the guidance from KSDE, but goodness gracious, it seems to me that spending at-risk money on helping adults who did not graduate from high school, which is actually the very definition of the kids that are at risk in K through 12, that's what we're trying to prevent, is kids not graduating from high school, and they were spending those dollars on kids who did not in fact graduate, is in keeping with the intent of the use of those funds. So I want to just share that I think that context is very important in these conversations, and that the committee members and conferees who kept bashing public schools on the basis of this audit are doing a disservice to the students being served and to public education as a whole in our state. I wanted to share these observations because I think our community needs to be paying very close attention to where information is coming from when you hear this sort of information, because these conversations that are happening at this special committee are indicative of what's going to be happening and what's going to be considered as potential policy proposals by these same legislators who are in charge of these committees when the session starts in January. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you. Other board members? Okay, we're going to move on to approval of a consent agenda. Is there a motion?
I move the Board of Education adopt the items listed on the consent agenda.
I second.
Kimball,
Yes.
Van,
Yes.
Byers,
Yes.
Kadu Blackwood,
Yes.
Gordon Ross.
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
The motion passes 7-0.
Okay, we're going to move on to new business, enrollment analysis and boundary analysis facilitation, RSB and Associates. This is an item that I believe Dr. Engelbrick will be coming to provide context on. He's the Chief Operations Officer. Welcome, Dr. Engelbrick.
Thank you very much. President Jones, board members, Dr. Lewis, thank you for this opportunity. I'll bring a few comments about the proposed contract with RSP, and then stand for questions. I believe you have questions to be asked. I think it should be pointed out that the school district, our school district, has had an ongoing relationship in this area of work with RSP since the 2005-2006 school year. A very long and a very trusted relationship. RSP, over those years, has provided the district expertise in fundamentally 2 major areas: student projections and boundary analysis. They did this last year with us in support of our Futures Planning Committee and in support of our Boundary Advisory Committee. Much of the work that we're looking at this year is truly based upon a continuation of the work that was done last year. Big change this year in the work is the focus in on middle school and the middle school student adjustments that may occur and boundary adjustments that may need to be considered to support the redesign of Liberty Memorial Central Middle School, to make sure all of our students have the opportunity to attend the program that best suits their future educational desires. The work that we're looking at in this contract falls into these areas. The first is an analysis and an overview comparison of how did we do in our projections last year compared to our actual enrollment this year. We're just now finishing the cleaning up of our September 20th data that'll allow us to begin looking at that and working with RSP. Not just how close were we in our analysis and our projections, but also looking at what occurred where we were off. I think there are a few schools that we may see some discrepancies in what our projections were and what our final enrollments were. In many cases, that's due to work done by our staff to help meet the needs of students across our district. I would expect to see some changes from projection to actual around students moving from Pinckney. I think we'll see differences at Hillcrest, at Deerfield, at Woodlawn, and possibly at Cordley. Students had choices. Students took advantage of those choices, and they may have chosen to go to schools other than those that we projected they would be in. A second area would be the analysis of demographic information by building. RSP, each time we make a change, redoes the work that we have around that and gives us new demographic data of students that would be attending that building, that specific attendance area. We also ask them to help us in our staff analysis. What type of staffing do we need to consider across the district and by school based upon the enrollment analysis? We will be asking RSP, as I mentioned earlier, to work with us on the middle school boundary analysis. Make sure we have that right. Make sure that students early on and families understand their opportunities and that we can provide for those opportunities for all of our middle school students. RSP also helps us in determining early on the impact of any proposed changes on busing and the cost of busing based on the fact that they start telling us information early on how many students will be eligible for busing compared to the number of students that were eligible this year. They will also, provide us ongoing updates and final boundary maps for our buildings. They produce those maps, they provide them to us in paper form and in digital form, and we're able to use that in a number of different ways. This year we will add an area out of House Bill 2567 and ask RSP to help us identify the capacities that we should be using for our building and our class level capacities to meet the demands of House Bill 2567. I think it is important to point out that while this support and this consultation over the years has not been bid out, if the question were to be asked, can this be bid? Yes, it can be. Does statute require that it be bid? No, it's a professional service. Many times those are not bid out, but if that is the desire, it can be bid out. It would be a lengthy process to do correctly. And I would only point out that we hope to have much of the information that we need this year available by the first part of March for our students and our families. If you remember last year, we were later than that on being able to tell students and families the boundaries, where they would be attending, and the impact that they would have. We listened to the parents, and we listened to members of the community. We need to do that as early as possible this year. I think at that, I'd stand for questions from board members.
Can I ask, before you jump in, are there questions? Who has questions? Okay. Okay. Do you want to go ahead and, does preference on who starts, Carol or GR?
No. Hi, this is Carol. Well, I thank you for moving this to the new business on the agenda, but you asked, or you said this could be bid out. That is something that I would be in favor of. And in this contract, is there mention of working with other partners, such as the the Douglas County Health Department?
RSP receives information and gathers information, and I have to be a little careful because I don't know if they go directly to the Douglas County Health Department, but from various government entities, from the school district, and economic indicators in the work that they do. I could ask that specific question.
Yeah, thank you, because I think that something of this big of a task, we've been doing this since 2005. I saw that we've been partnering or working with RSP. But how is it? I think that it would benefit this community or this board if we consider bidding this out, because it seems like this just keeps getting tacked on and tacked on, all these bills, these costs.
One of the things that I'll point out that I was very surprised of 2 years ago, it appears the board has had, the district, I should say, has had the history of updating our student projections 3, 4, or 5 years in a cycle. The best forecasters of student growth, population growth in school districts is to do that every year. Every year that you do those projections, you refine the matrix that you're using a little bit more, and it gets a little bit better. If we wait 5 years, we're dealing with data that has changed over a 5-year period, and we don't always pick up everything. It can be bid out. If you so desire, we would do that. One of the things that I think we need to do to make sure it's as accurate as possible is shorten that interval between the student projections.
So I certainly would be in favor of bidding out the contract and writing the contract in such a way that it's a multi-year contract where we can get data as often as we need it in the bid process. But I do agree with you that what happened last year when we got the data late and we got boundaries late and we impacted families, we impacted the enrollment process, we impacted all those things. I would stand to say that I agree that we don't have time to bid it this year, because I don't think, given RSP's understanding and the continuation of the work that they started last year, that if we were to bring in a whole new company, once the bid process finished, to try to pick up where they left off, I don't see it feasible that we could finish by the beginning of March if we were to start to bid it now. And I think that would be problematic to meet those goals. So I certainly would be in favor of finishing this work with RSP this year and then starting the bid process to move forward from there.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Dr. Engelbrecht, you mentioned the impacts of the out-of-district transfer bill. And am I correct in remembering that that bill directs that the district shall do an analysis of capacity at each of our buildings, and that that analysis must be completed by May 1st?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have the capacity to do that work in-house?
I always hate to say that we do not have the capacity to do something. We will have a much better product if we have a consultant working with us on that. Could we do this in-house? Yes, but I think the consultant brings extremely valuable expertise to this in their ability to focus in on the things that we'll just miss. They've done this before in other states. In terms of RSP, other consultants, we would say the very same thing of. They've done it in other locations and in other states.
And I know that our board policy mentions that we must do this sort of analysis periodically. So, there have been times when I know we have had district staff do some pieces of this work. And Dr. Lewis, am I correct that we actually have eliminated those positions over the last couple of years?
Right. And I was going to share that when when I first arrived, we were using RSP every year for enrollment projections. We was getting some valuable information, but we were getting 5-year projections. I know things change year after year, and so we went on a rotation in an effort to save money then on an every other year rotation with them. We had someone in-house that was beginning to look at these numbers and do these projections, but due to budget cuts, we eliminated pretty much 2 positions, and one of those positions was someone who did this type of work. I will say that RSP is an organization that uses a student forecast model that not a lot of organizations use, and they do look at birth rate data, Carol. So I'm assuming they do pull that from the county. They look at previous enrollment projections. Previous enrollments, birth rate, any type of demographic trends in the area, any unique data that's unique to the district, as well as in some other data that they pull in to provide 5-year to 10-year projections. It's a pretty sophisticated model, and so if we do bid it out, we may find that they are maybe a sole source when it comes to some of the models that we need to accurately predict this.
I think I'm looking at GR's suggestion and thinking that we need to be prepared for that open enrollment implementation, and that we may be having to think about how we do that work, because we'll have to do it on an annual basis. So that's, I think, just something we need to keep in mind and consider as we think about these processes.
When I think about this, I just want to make sure this is what we're talking about approving tonight would be a contract for this year.
Yes, sir.
And for me, the issue of changing contracts becomes more of what we lose in that change. The good thing about our RSP is that they've been working with us over 18 years, if I calculated it right. Over 18 years, they have 18 years worth of data that we can access easily. I've been in numerous meetings where they present it. They present information, data. They do not make decisions for us. They seldom make recommendations for us. We make the decisions off of that data. For me, I would hate to get into a situation where we're bidding or rebidding every year for a different person, a group to come in and collect data. What you end up with is a patchwork of data that really you can't make a lot of sense out of. So my hesitancy to say, well, let's bid this out every year, or for any period of time is that we lose some of the continuity that we've hopefully purposely created, so they can go back and look over an expanse of time at the data. Usually my point is, usually when you're looking at data of less than 10 years in duration, it's hard to do an accurate projection. So where I stand on it is actually the issue for me is I don't want to create a situation where we disarm ourselves in the future, because we won't have accurate information that we can project historically from.
Other questions for Dr. Engelbrecht?
So I do agree with Bob and GR. Just to confirm, not bidding out will not violate any statute or policy, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And to make sure that is correct.
We don't have to make the choice.
GR, can you wait just a moment? Paula was pulling the, go ahead, Paula.
This might be a question for Dr. Lewis, but out of your knowledge with RSP, have they ever not delivered what was set out in their contract?
No, based on, this is year 6 for me, based on the years that we've been using our RSP, no, they have never not delivered.
has the board, to your knowledge, have they ever evaluated the contractor RSP based on, if their work is satisfactory to what we want, what the board wants?
Well, as far as the board, no, the board has not evaluated. We have internally looked at our projections when RSP gives us the projections, and then we see what the students are, and it's hit or miss 5 to 10 students off typically.
Okay,
So the accuracy has been strong.
Yes.
okay. All right, thank you.
GR.
I was just going to say, so to Paula's point, when I saw this on consent and just did a little digging around, I mean, in board docs, if you search back in October of 2019, there was actually a presentation from Kathy where she laid out RSP's projections versus the actual September count for middle and high, and it was plus or minus like 2%. So, I mean, we had a presentation, at least in 2019, of those exact numbers side by side. And then to Bob's point, I would say that tonight, we don't need to answer the bidding question. I appreciate your thought on it, and it's good information to process when we get to that point to decide what to do.
Carol Snow.
Yes. Well, my concern is it's 27,000 here, 80,000 there, every so often. We keep getting these rising costs. And I keep hearing how we need to trim here and trim there, and I just don't know when, who's to say maybe, down the road in a few months, we're going to get another bill. And they've had 18 years. RSP has had over 18 years to work with Lawrence Public Schools, and during the school closure process, I asked the consultant if they had been consulting with the Douglas County Health Department, and to his knowledge at that meeting, he said no. So that's my big concern, is I would like to see something like a robust, deliberate equity impact analysis in conjunction with the school and the county.
Thank you.
Dr. Engelbrecht, could I ask a clarifying question? I think I know the answer to this, but I just want to ask the clarifying question for the benefit of the public. This is an approval for up to a certain amount, but when I read through the attached proposed service agreement, it appeared that we anticipate that the totality of the services they're going to provide will likely be less than
That is correct.
amount that, but you are seeking approval because last year we ended up asking them to do additional public meetings based on board work and board direction, correct? So is it fair for me to assume that the reason that the enclosure is written this way is so that you have authority to do the work that you need to do plus account for additional requests from the board during this contract period?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I would point out that we did not expend all of the funds allocated to RSP last year. I think we were in the neighborhood of $10,000 below what the approved allocation was.
Okay, thank you.
Do board members need additional information before there is a motion? Okay, is there a motion for the recommended action?
I move the Board of Education approve the proposal from RSP and Associates to complete an enrollment analysis, which is to include 5-year enrollment projections, development, and housing analysis, and a demographic profile to complete a boundary analysis and report and consult on the boundary public facilitation process at a cost not to exceed $80,000 to be paid out of the general fund.
I second.
Van,
Yes.
Byers,
Yes.
Kadu Blackwood,
No.
Gordon Ross.
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kimball.
Yes.
The motion passes 6-1.
Okay, thank you, board members. Before we move on to,
So, Dr. Ingebrigtsen.
oh, thank you, Dr. Engelbrecht. Before we move on to the special education overview, we'll take a 5-minute break and reconvene at 7:12.
Yeah.
Carol's making her way back up. We're going to hear a overview of our special education services and programming from Kevin Harrell, Executive Director of Student Services and Special Education. And then others will be joining him here, and I'll let you introduce as you go. Thank you, Kevin.
Well, good evening. Kevin Harrell, Executive Director of Student Services and Special Education. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Tonight, we're going to give an overview of the report that you received. In special education, there's a lot of different things. So we kind of focused on questions that you've given us or some concerns that have come up or things we deal with on a regular basis. So maintenance of effort, contracted services, the complaint process. And so we're going to have a conversation about some of those things. One thing I do want to talk about, which is rare, is that my special education team, Laura, Lori, and Sheila, we've been together between 10 to 15 years, which is rare. I mean, I work through all of the state, and so to have a team that's been together for so long, it's kind of like, I don't know if you've seen there's a video of this guy that walks in his kitchen and his wife and says, hey, don't say anything, but every night I go to bed, and when I wake up tomorrow, it's clean. It's amazing, it's clean. And I kind of feel like that sometimes. Things just happen, because we get a list of things from the state that we have to do every year, and we're dealing with families, parents, students, staff, administrators, and we're juggling lots of different balls. And over the years, it seemed like those things just get done by magic. We really don't have an answer for it. And to the point that they sometimes feel okay telling me that they think that I'm wrong. Now, notice I didn't say that was wrong, but that they think that I'm wrong. So I do have to get credit for the work that they do and all the things that we do over the years. They've done over the years to make our team strong in special education in Lawrence Public Schools. I do, as this video, this slide, one of the things I do want to stress is that special education supports general education. And we are only as good as our general education, so working with TNL, and we look at our core, our tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, those type of things, the better they are, the less negative impact on special education. So we are here to support general education. So as we move forward to think about that, our students are general education students first who receive special education services. And this is just an overview of this data is in the report that you received. And so we will start with Sheila Smith, who'll kind of talk about what's going on.
Good evening. I'm Sheila Smith. I'm one of the assistant directors, and I cover elementary schools, as well as state reporting and procedural compliance, as well as various other things, as you noted, Kevin, with the magical things happening. That's his team behind him. So wanted to start off with a little bit of an overview of what special education is. When we think about services that we provide to students on an IEP, specially designed instruction is at the heart of that, and that is actually the definition of special education that is listed in IDEA. We need to provide targeted instruction to students to meet their unique needs so that they can both access general education as well as make progress for the agencies, or in our case, district educational standards. Another area that we provide services is called related services. This may include services such as occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy. And what's important to know about these services, a team makes a determination if these services are needed, and it's more than will the student benefit from these services. But the team actually looks at the data and says, without this particular related service, they won't benefit from their special education program. So this really is a data-driven and need service. The other services that we provide on IEPs are supplementary aids and services and supports for school personnel. And since all of our students with exceptionalities are general education students first, these are services that help them access the curriculum. We level the playing field. We provide training to teachers and other general education staff, as well as special education staff, as how to meet a student's needs. When I've been talking about the data-based decisions, so all of these decisions for services are made at the building level. It's an IEP team decision, and they use data and information from the most recent evaluation. And when a team decides to evaluate a student, it's based upon existing building data from the tiered system of supports, or CI3T, and then it's a two-prong test. So one, does the evaluation data show that they're eligible and meet the definition of a student with exceptionality? And two, do they need specially designed instruction? Okay. When we think about meeting the needs of students with exceptionalities, it's helpful to consider prevalence data. Prevalence data is just another way of saying that it's the percentage of students with disabilities or gifted. We look at this because the state collects this data, and they collect it the same way for every district. So we have some pretty good comparison data. One of the things that we can also look at is just how well our overall system is doing when we look at prevalence data, because as we know, our students whose needs cannot be met through general education alone are the ones who are referred for special education services. So the more students we have with IEPs, whether it's with a disability or with gifted, sometimes that becomes more challenging to meet the needs of those students because of staffing difficulties, as well as the funds that the state does allocate for special education. One of the things when we look at this graph is that you can tell that Lawrence has had traditionally slightly less percentage of students than the state, and that's been a trend for several years, and then slightly more prevalence for gifted. There's also a trend of students identified as having disabilities going up. That is true for both Lawrence, the state, and the nation. Okay. The other thing I wanted to point out is that this data does include students who are private schooled as well as homeschooled whose families choose to access special education services. Sometimes people aren't aware of that, but we do child find and provide services to students in our district area if they choose to enroll in Lawrence Public Schools. So they will go to their private school and then come to us for some of those services. So those numbers are also included in there. Lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about the complaint process or dispute resolution. So special education is highly regulated and can be quite litigious in parts of the country. Kansas is fairly lucky because we have extra protections in our special education law and procedures that require us to work with parents more closely and obtain consent for some things that other states do not have. But we all know that sometimes disagreements and concerns happen, and we do encourage for those concerns and disputes to be taken care of at the most direct level. So if parents have concern, hopefully they've reached out to their teacher, to their IEP team, to their principal, and then if they're still having difficulty, they can always reach out to us, and we will work very closely with those parents as well as the team to make sure that the team is considering everything that the parent is sharing with them and is making data-based decisions for that student. So we do want to thank the board because we know you sometimes get a lot of parent concerns. So thank you for continuing to forward those to us because we really do want to work with parents and support them to help navigate this process. If we are still not able to resolve those concerns, parents have other options outside of our district, and these are through the state. There's a complaint process, mediation, and due process. We are required to provide parents with parent rights, and all of these steps are outlined in those parent rights, so they do have access in how to pursue one of those avenues. So just wanted to end that dispute resolution with the bottom line is we really want to do what is necessary and appropriate for students, and we're all pretty passionate about that. So thank you again for making sure that parents know that we are available for them. So, any questions? Okay. Lori is up next with staffing.
Good evening. I'm Lori Stitham, Director of Special Education. I work primarily to support our secondary buildings, middle schools, high schools, and then our transition 18 to 21, in addition to related services and state reporting and all of us in our various other duties as well. We have, as Sheila mentioned with staffing, we have struggled to fill some of our harder to fill positions. And for the past 5 years, we've consistently needed to contract with various service providers to provide some of the required special education and related services to our students. And due to some of the hard to fill positions, specifically occupational therapists, physical therapists, speech language pathologists, school psychologists. And these positions over the last 5 years have been increasingly difficult to fill. But even so, we have looked to contract agencies to help us be able to fill those and provide those services. And even within the contract agencies, we've had difficulty finding those individuals to fill those positions as well. And so as we think about that, I know that you all have had questions about just a comparison between what we submit in the way of board enclosures for the contract services to be provided in comparison to what our direct hire costs would be. And that's what is presented here on this chart. So we've got the total of the 2023-24 board enclosures in the amount of the $2,220,000, and then worked with HR to come up with the estimated amount of direct hire costs using average salaries for those positions plus benefits, and then the stipends that you all have approved for our related service providers and special education teachers. And then the difference between those two. The positions that we're talking about that have been filled through these contract positions are also listed here at the bottom. So you can have an idea of what these costs would get us in the way of staffing. And so this continues to be a struggle for us, specifically with our related service providers, but wanted you to have a breakdown of this information. Are there questions?
So is this slide telling us that you believe that with that estimated amount of direct hire costs, you could hire those positions for that dollar amount? You could find the people in the marketplace to take those jobs for that money?
The estimated amount of direct hire costs, is that the amount you're talking about?
Yeah.
And that is the struggle.
Okay.
And surrounding districts are having the same struggle with being able to have a competitive salary, and that is often the reason for us not being able to fill those positions.
And this number is what it would cost if those positions were, if we hired those positions now.
Okay, okay, I got you.
Just to give you that comparison.
Okay,
That's with the current $1,800 stipend, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
okay.
And like I said, this is not a Lawrence problem. It's not a Kansas problem. It's a national problem. I went to a district worked with some districts at a conference, and one district said they were short 135 certified staff, which is, I mean, it's a larger district, but it's an issue across the country.
We've across the country and even within the state, I've talked to other districts where they've gone, they've gone an entire year without a service provider because they haven't been able to secure either a direct hire or a contract position.
And the challenge is that some of our current or even upcoming SPED teachers or service providers are being contracted by these companies that are making significantly more. And so that's something that we can look at in terms of additional stipends.
And that is some of these positions are speech SLPs, OTs. They can make more outside of education. And so they are leaving to go to other positions where they make quite a bit more money because it is a specialized. And it's not a certified position through the state of Kansas Department of Education. It is a different certification. So
It's the fact that they can make more money and their day is a little bit flexible, would you say, working with a contracted service?
I would say yes to that day and even hours as well, and their flexibility.
One of the things that we do offer is that they can have the same schedule as their children. But that's not enough to keep a staff.
Have you seen any benefit from the $1,800 stipend that the board approved?
I would say that.
Can you talk into the mic?
Sorry. I would say that in a minor way, perhaps. I mean, I think it has helped, certainly, and I think it has helped to recognize those individuals that are currently employed with us.
To retain.
From a retention standpoint, absolutely.
Would you say that it is a bigger problem to find people to fill the positions or to keep people who are in the positions? I'm just curious.
People leave for different reasons. I think it's more difficult to find right now. I do think the stipends we have, and I do think the $1,800, I think it did help us retain. And we do know we had some staff come in new this year, and that was something they said. But we didn't hire a lot of new staff, but it didn't impact these positions.
Gotcha.
One of the things, the $1,800 stipend went to our resource teachers or our special ed teachers. These positions, our SLPs, OTs, these group of people already had a stipend, a small stipend, so they didn't get an additional stipend.
Okay, thank you.
So this might be a question for you, Dr. Lewis. If the board was interested in having the district make a concerted effort to close that gap between what we are spending on contracted services and what we would spend if we were directly employing folks, I mean, is that even something that would be possible?
Yeah, the first thing I would ask the team to do is look at what school districts around the state, around the country, because it's a national problem, in terms of those that have been successful with maybe a higher stipend, in terms of attracting these service providers. Is there some flexibility in hours? Is there some flexibility in days, to make it attractive to hire? Because you have to think about, if I'm contracted with some of the ones that we've used before, some of the ones that we're currently using, I may not work full 8 hours. I may work 4 hours and have that flexibility there. So yeah, we certainly can look at what are some ways that, because that's a lot of money, we certainly can look at some ways that we can reduce that by entertaining or exploring stipends, and you may have some other ideas as well once you looked at that.
And
We know, I'm sorry, we
I'm
do know
sorry.
some other, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
We do know other districts, and I think it's a part of the negotiations. Some districts, they're not a part of the teacher contract, they don't have the teacher contract, different things. And we do consider part-time. So that's for anyone listening that wants.
Right, that wants a
We
part-time
do
position.
hire part-time also.
I think just for my education and thinking about this as a board member, I would probably need to have a better understanding of those issues around the certifications and, licensure and how where these folks fit on our matrix and what provisions of the master agreement apply or don't apply at all to them. Like, I think because they're related services, they're not teachers, but they are licensed staff people. I might like some additional education around that.
When was the last time we did a market analysis related to this particular issue for the professions that are listed? Recognizing special education teachers are certainly falling within the negotiated contract.
I don't know that we've done a formal analysis. We meet regularly with districts, the Region 1, so the Kansas City districts are in our region. We meet with them regularly, and we talk about it. We had that discussion of teacher contracts, many on the teacher contract or not on the teacher contract, but I don't think we've done an official market study for the position.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I think Cindy's up next.
Thank you. I'm Cindy Frick, Executive Director of Finance. Tonight, we would like to talk a little bit about the financial portion of special education. So when we talk about state aid for special education, by statute, the state is supposed to pay 92% of the excess cost incurred by districts for providing special education services. At this point, the state is underpaying that statewide by approximately $175 million. I talked to KSDE about, since it is a statewide calculation, what that would mean specifically to Lawrence. And they did some estimates that would be subject to change as our teacher counts change compared to the rest of the state of Kansas. But they said at this time, if the state were to fund at the 92%, that would mean about $3.5 to $4 million to Lawrence. And so we'll look at the breakdown of the special education funding. And this chart, I think we've looked at before. I just separated out the federal portion is in blue. Green is what the state has been paying in special education state aid. And the orange represents what the district is paying to help cover the special education cost. So that is from the general fund and the LOB fund. We transfer money over as needed into special education fund to help support the costs, the expenditures that we have. So in looking at last year, the district covered out of general fund and LOB, we covered about 37% of the cost.
Cindy, before you move on, may I ask?
Sure.
Kelly, is it okay if I ask a question? Could we go back to that slide?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I am curious about is this last year, we transferred $9.225 million into the special education fund. I know that under the state statute, we are responsible for about 8% of those excess costs, but why is there such a big difference between the $9 million and the state's estimate of $3.5 to $4 million?
And so you're saying the $3.5 to $4 million versus the $9 million that we have provided?
Right. I mean, it seems like the gap that we are covering is larger than what they estimated. I think what I'm asking is, am I reading this right? Am I misunderstanding it? Because
yes.
There's a discrepancy there, and I don't get why.
Okay. And I have not gotten into the federal requirement either for special education, so I can't really speak to that part in terms of the amount that they should be funding. But this is the difference between what the state and federal aid is versus what we're paying for.
Okay. I think KSDE is underestimating the gap then for our district. That would be my conclusion, is that they're underestimating the gap. Just to clarify, the special education statute, they fund positions, not students, right?
They fund positions.
Everybody's nodding their heads, yes, okay.
And I'm just thinking out loud here, since the 92% is based on the statewide calculation, is that necessarily going to match up to our 92%?
And I think that from what I have seen of some of the analyses around this issue, that might be the answer to why their estimate is different, because that has been the case in some of the analyses that I've seen, that some places, the state is getting much closer to covering 92% of the costs than they are in other districts, based on the number of students that are being served and the number of staff that you're hiring.
Yeah.
And I want to be confident in when we are able to share this information with legislators and saying, we transferred almost $9.3 million out of our general fund to pay for special education services last year that was not covered by the state.
Right. And these numbers just came from our audit each year.
Okay.
And alls we do is we look at the amount that's federal aid is set aside separately, state aid is noted separately, and the remainder by default has to be funded from us. And so we aren't tying it out to every dime that we transferred over. We're looking at the larger amount of special education expenditures. Because the balance does fluctuate at the end of the year, so I left that factor out of it.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Building on what Shannon has said, I think I would like to understand in more detail this particular number, the 9 million versus the potential 4 million. So for me, I think coming back to the board with just a fine tune, like this is what's happening at the federal level, this is what's happening at the state level, because like $9 million is putting just as a exercise in what if that money wasn't coming out of general fund would help us, for example, achieve a living wage for all of our staff, could have an impact on retention for wages for individuals that have specialized services like occupational therapy, could have an impact on making our wages more competitive with Johnson County, where we are sometimes losing educators too because it's drivable. So in terms of a commute. So for me, that number is really important to be able to educate policymakers around, and particularly when I consider it against what Shannon reported to us she's hearing out of the committees in terms of the messaging that they are putting forward that are sound bites that I am hearing in many, many spaces that has traction. We have to be able to tell this story very clearly. So I would like additional information on this particular number.
And we'll get into maintenance of effort, which just makes it a little bit more convoluted as well. In talking to the state, I think last week, they are completely willing to come down for a meeting and talk all about special education. We just need to get our timing right with those representatives to make that happen. So that may be where we're headed for that. In terms of maintenance of effort, this is a compliance area where we have 4 different tests in order to meet maintenance of effort, which essentially means that we are spending as much in the current year as we did the last time we met compliance. So this can be based on state and local effort combined, or local effort by itself. And so when we ask the question, does our district support get to decrease if state aid ever increases that 3.5 to 4 million? The answer is it depends on how many tests we would like to meet. Technically, we only have to meet one of the tests. And so if we could use test number 1, state and local effort combined, then we could decrease district support by the increase in the amount of state aid. If you talk to the federal fund folks at KSDE, they would like us to still try to meet all 4 tests. So their philosophy is we would not decrease our local contribution. And so I think that, again, is another topic that the board would have to work through, where we're going to stand on that. I think the main point that I heard the state speaking of is the risk that we have as a district when the state no longer funds at the 92%. And we run that district, as you know, with every type of funding that we have. And unfortunately, then we go in and make budget reductions when those type of changes happen. So anyway, you will note, depending on who we're talking to, some differences of opinion there. What we do know is any year we do not meet maintenance of effort, the district has to pay that amount of money back to the state, and then the state pays it into the U.S. Department of Ed. There are some exceptions to maintenance of effort. For example, if we have fewer students, or if we need to purchase a special education van. There are some fluctuations in those dollar amounts that help us when these differences arise from year to year. And this is just kind of a very simplified chart if you wanted to follow along how the state tests for maintenance of effort and the last year that we made those. Anything else on state aid or maintenance of effort before we move along?
I do want to add that there was a year that we did not make maintenance of effort. And the state caught it and reached out to us and came and helped problem solve. It was right after COVID. And the way we were able to meet maintenance of effort is because we lost so many students. So we were able to, that exception where we had fewer students, we were able to decrease our maintenance of effort. So then we were able to meet the maintenance of effort. So you run the risk of, if you don't meet in all 4 areas, you run the risk of, you don't meet it, then you have to try to figure out which one. And you go back to the last time you made maintenance of effort. So when we think about our local, if it was 10 years ago and it was more, you have to go back to that. So it's just something to think about. And then Laura Basham, we'll talk about our partnerships.
Good evening. My name is Laura Basham, and I am Director of Student Services. I focus primarily on early childhood services that start at birth, that go through 3 years old in our infant toddler programs, and then also our 3 to 5 program for early childhood, as well as elementary I support as well. And then our state reporting that goes with our infant toddler through our KDHE programming, and then our early childhood and elementary. So I am here this evening to share a little bit about our partnerships. In the Department of Special Education, we actually have many partnerships. We are actually just highlighting a few this evening. A partnership that I'm actually very excited to share about is our LSEAC. It is a parent advisory committee made up of parents that their students have disabilities or exceptionalities. We come together as a group almost monthly, and we have work sessions. We plan events for the community. They have been instrumental in getting a parent handbook out. We are actively looking to grow the committee. We have a small group of very mighty people that are very dedicated, and we're looking for more parents. So if there are parents that are out there that are watching, we would love to have parents go to our website, apply, and or attend one of our meetings and become involved. We would love to have more voices involved in that partnership. We also have many programs and projects that we work with through the University of Kansas. We're excited to be in our second year of working with a group that will be coming out, a group of teachers, they're pre-service teachers, that will be coming out dual certified. So they will be certified in general ed and special education, kindergarten through 6th grade. This is a pretty inventive program. It's new. Typically, we see dual certifications coming out at the early childhood level, but KU is being innovative, and they have expanded that. That will help with, hopefully, some of our retention or some of our recruitment practices. We have a cohort that started last year. It went very well, and we've grown that cohort this year as well. Now we've got about 12 students, practicum students, that are in our elementary schools. So that's an exciting project we're working on with KU. We also have a report that was included, it was attached tonight, that you'll be able to access, of supporting our inclusive environments. And that was a report that we worked collaboratively with professors at the University of Kansas out of the special education department. And then we have a couple of our programs, elementary as well as high school, focusing on self-determination and building expert learners in themselves, and very important topic for building independence with our students. So we have a couple pilots and a couple projects that we're working on with KU through that as well. Thinking about our project search, we do have a partnership with LMH and JobLink for some of our transition services. Another partnership, our ECAN Head Start. We do have a couple classrooms, or a classroom. They were hoping to have 2 classrooms, Head Start, at Kennedy this year, but due to staffing reasons, they were only able to open 1 classroom. We've been working collaboratively with our Head Start partners with collaboration, professional development, as well as sharing resources for classrooms to get more early childhood programming to students in Douglas County. The LACC, or the Local Interagency Coordinating Council, is a very active group in the early childhood world in Douglas County. There are many groups that are part of our LICC. This group is, the main purpose of this group is coming out of supporting our infant toddler programming. So we have, through KDHE, our what used to be known as Tiny K. It's now infant toddler services. And monthly we get together and with many groups across the county, because this program through Lawrence Public Schools does serve county-wide, so all of Douglas County. And we have several groups, and many of the groups are listed there in the written report that are part of our interagency coordinating council. And then we have partnerships with our post-secondary groups as we are looking to bridge the growth and the opportunities for our students as they're exiting our school district programming and out into adulthood. Again, these are just some of our partnerships here that I would like to highlight. We do have several more. Did I miss any? Oh. All right, and so as we also think about special education and our wide breadth that we cover, birth to 21 for services, we have lots of celebrations. First and foremost, our staff, our certified, our classified staff. Fantastic staff. Our students could not make progress without our staff. So that is a huge celebration. Day to day, the dedication, unsung heroes showing up, doing the work, students making progress, and that's because of our staff. So that is a big celebration. Another highlight is the collaborative work that has gone on with negotiations for both PAL CWA and LEA, thinking about the wage increases that have happened. That does impact general ed. Also, special education helps with retention, so thank you for your efforts with that. This year, we had a new hiring stipend where all of our certified special education staff were able to get a stipend for being part of special education. So that was above and beyond. And that, again, is a huge recruitment and retention piece, honoring the efforts, just the extra responsibilities that need to occur because of state and federal laws that we need to make sure we're staying in compliance. So that all of the efforts are very much appreciated with that. Big highlights. Then our Community Connections program at Pinckney. I'm not sure if you guys have been able to get out there to the building yet this year. Fantastic things are going on. Just a big highlight all around. Strong partnerships that we've already touched on. And again, our LCAC, big highlights as well coming out of the Department of Special Ed. With our celebrations, we do have some challenges that we would be remiss if we did not mention. We did talk about some of our staffing challenges this evening. So yes, staffing challenges, we do have them. I do want to say as we're going through these challenges that we do like to roll up our sleeves. We do like to be inventive, tackle the challenges, note them, see what we can do to move through them, move around them, not use challenges as excuses, but continue moving forward to see what we can do. Thinking professional development. Professional development is always a need, and there are so many layers to professional development, especially when we're talking about all of the varied needs of our students. When we think about our general ed staff that need professional development, our special education staff, the related service, our paraeducators in the classroom, meeting those needs it comes with lots of layers, and then also juggling the priorities because it's not just about special education. Our students are general ed students first, and so we also need to make sure that we're meeting the demands for our general education purposes as well. And then another challenge is our limited resources. You've heard quite a bit about our limited resources tonight, so I don't think I need to go into more detail about that this evening. So with that brings us to the conclusion of our formal report, and we'll stand for questions.
I do want to add, special ed is big, and there's a lot of stuff, and there's no way we can teach you special ed in just a few minutes. But I will tell you that I've been here a while, and we do some great things. And if you had an opportunity to attend the C-Tran graduation, Project Search graduation, and Nick was one of our, that Dr. Lewis mentioned earlier, Nick Marchand was one of our students. And it's great because I've seen some of these students, and it dates me, but from when they were in preschool all the way to their graduating from a 21 program. So we do some great things, and often we don't hear about those things, but I appreciate you guys coming to those graduations also. So thanks. Questions?
Okay, Shannon, others that have questions? Okay, let's start.
So thank you for all of the information, both the report this evening and also the written report that was in Board Docs. I read it. I found it very helpful and informative. One question I wanted to ask about the staffing data that you had shared in the written report. It talks about where we're at this year and where we are with our unfilled vacancies. What is the trend that you're seeing? Are we holding steady in the unfilled positions? Have we reduced the number of unfilled positions year over year with some of our salary changes?
So we do have more unfilled positions this year and over the last, I would say, 2 years than it was a challenge prior to COVID, but since coming back from that, the trend has been multiple openings in varying positions. And so I would say that the trend is taking more of a downward turn than it is.
I think that's important for us to know, so thank you.
And I think that's across the state. Again, I think there's a document from the state that looked at trends since the 90s. And actually, they compared districts. Now, our district it's not as bad as 70 or 80% of the other districts. And so
Would you share that with the board?
Yes.
I would really like to have that information available. It's helpful, again, in the advocacy efforts that we're trying to do around special ed, so thank you.
I think I might have seen that report. Is it accurate to say that a lot of the districts that had more challenges with staffing were rural?
Yes and no.
Okay.
But again, I think when you look at the percentages, I will tell you that it is one of those where a smaller district, one staff, maybe 50 senators.
Okay.
But what we looked at are the bigger districts, and they do listed by size and also by that.
Thank you, Kevin.
I have one additional question
Uh-huh.
after others.
I think you, go.
So along those lines, and something you had said earlier when you were talking about the OT and the speech pathologist about other districts who looked at those positions specifically, not lumped in with other certified staff. Have you thought about, as you've discussed other staff, pulling them out as well, like tiny K providers or parents as teachers who aren't technically certified staff, but do a lot of the same work as certified staff, but don't fall on the certified staff matrix, so they're not paid that same way?
Parents as teachers are not certified?
Correct.
Correct. Parents as teachers are classified staff, and those parents as teachers is technically not part of special education, it's student service. And then our tiny K staff or infant toddler staff, they are part of the certified staff and then also then part of the master agreement as well, right, currently.
So we have not thought about pulling anyone out. That's a different discussion, I believe, at a different, because they are part of the
Fair enough.
shooting right now.
Fair enough.
So I don't have a question right now, but I do want to thank you for what you all do for our students. We really appreciate that. And it's evident that you and your team put in a lot of work for this board, I won't say board report, but the study sessions. I really appreciate all the effort that you put into it.
Excuse me, this is Carol. And I don't have a question, but I just want to thank you for your, like Erica and everybody else here, I just want to thank you for your report and your work, because we can see that you really care, so thank you. And we will use this when we go advocate, so thank you.
Okay. Go.
Actually, have a quick question. As one, okay, our special ed services are responsible for children in private schools. Do they end up counting in our head count? Okay. She said yes. Yeah.
Yes. It's a little different, and it's a little different, I think, because especially we're funded by teacher, but.
That's right.
And so I don't know that we get additional funding for them as special ed students.
They don't get counted as a full head count, so it weighs in differently, but they are reported on the building reports.
Okay,
And so,
cool.
like when Cindy talks about FTE versus head count.
Okay.
I just have one question. Back to the incentives, have any paraeducators taken advantage of the limited apprenticeship licensure?
Yes.
I don't have the exact number. I apologize for that. We can certainly get that to you. But I would say, gosh, it's been, I want to say at least 5 years that we have been looking to provide that opportunity to some of our paraeducators who have interest in that. We do have, I know at least a couple this year, and every year we've had multiple paraeducators take advantage of that, and that has been a great way to fill some of the gaps that we have in our staffing for those really strong paraeducators stepping up and working with them through that program. So. And part of the way that we help to support and incentivize that as well is that We do support tuition reimbursement for those paraeducators who agree to, who are offered a position and then agree and accept that position, up to $2,000 per school year to help out with their coursework tuition and reimbursement.
So I had a couple of questions. One of the takeaways from reading the report from KU was the percentage of educators who highlighted the importance of paraeducators in our classrooms and how important it is to retain those workers. So I wanted to acknowledge that and certainly say that continues to be an area where I think we need to look at where they are in the matrix to make decisions around whether or not their wages should be increased in order to impact retention. And then the other thing that has come up since I've been on the board is the Parent Special Ed Advisory Committee. I'll just note that last year when Paula and I were on negotiations and Kevin, Lori, and I think Sheila, it was primarily Sheila, we had a conversation at negotiations that was pretty impactful for me as a board member. I think it might be one of the most impactful days that I've served on the board. And that's saying something if you look back at the 6 years that I have been on the board. So for me, when I think about how important it was for me to hear from educators about what their day-to-day lives look like, it really translated this report into these moments where, you know, I think I caught my breath a couple of times listening to the challenges they have, trying to fit everything they need to in the day. So one of the things that occurs to me around retention, certainly pay is a huge component. But the other thing is the amount of time that special education workers, be they paras or teachers or our occupational therapists and nurses on the spectrum of people serving, social workers as well, is particularly zeroing in on its time seems to be an important component of the work that they do. So zeroing in on special education teachers, what efforts do we have underway, and perhaps this is very challenging to achieve, but as a board member, one of the things I would like to see is providing special education teachers additional time to do the work that they're doing. So that's one thing. And along those lines of time, I am curious, and I know that we will hear more from the middle school schedule committee, but I am very concerned about the changes to the schedule and its impact on middle school special education staff and educators. So that was a lot, but could you speak to at least some of those issues, and particularly time?
It's interesting, a middle school special ed teacher approached me today asking about that, and I told her we would continue to be a part of that discussion because she was worried that we weren't a part of the discussion. So we will continue to be a part of the discussion. As far as supporting teachers with, as far as time, I'll let Sheila talk about some of the things that we've done this year that we worked with you.
Yeah, there were discussions around additional staff, for example, and what those roles might be, and I know there was some hiring going on along those ways.
Yeah, we have hired 2 additional staff. We call them our evaluation team. And I think we did talk about that at one of the negotiation meetings of can we hire certified special education staff to come in and offer kind of a pressure valve for our teachers when they're in the evaluation process. So we have 2 individuals that float amongst all of our schools to help complete evaluations so that teachers aren't having to take time away out of their plan time or time away from working with students to get those evaluations done.
I'm glad that we were able to add those positions. And then I know that this is ongoing work, so I just want to highlight how important it is to me, and I know it is to you all to look at time.
Yeah. We did also post last year positions for hiring staff just to write IEPs.
Yes.
We were not able to fill those positions, but that is something that we will continue to post again. And then with our evaluation team, we're kind of growing that, so they may be helping within that realm too of helping write some of those IEPs, since this is all new to us, so we're being pretty organic about it.
That did sound like something that there was support for, so I'm glad to see that you're still considering
I will add that last year Sheila substituted as a school psych for a whole month or 2.
All right.
Lori was in the ED program. Laura was in the ED and autism program. So we're substituting up here also to try to support our buildings and our students.
Yeah, I have seen that as well. So I definitely want to acknowledge that. One thing that, so circling back to that day that was pretty impactful for me, we've talked about the Parent Special Education Advisory Committee does not have board representation because it is not a board committee. But I am requesting, because parents on that committee have in the past asked, why isn't there board representation? So it need not be a board committee, but it does stand out to me as a potential issue, assuming that that is something that they would feel as meaningful, that the day that I had listening to you could become more routine for the board, and this might be a space where we could do that, but I don't want to occupy a space where we're not, we're not what the objective of that advisory committee is, or that the parents there would prefer it not be inclusive of board members, but it would be something I'd request that you ask them about.
We can have a discussion about that.
Okay. Follow-up? Okay, so, sorry, Paul is like, we're good. And I have one final question. So one other thing that the board often gets questions about, circling back to Cindy, the question around the state is not fully funding special education, and it has a huge impact on the students that you all serving, and that I mean, watching you all in different capacities, I know how important the students are to each of you. And to us on the board, that's why we are here. There are constant questions about why the district doesn't sue, or why districts don't sue the state if they are not meeting their legal obligations. I understand that Gannon took us about 10 years and probably a few more before that when you count preceding cases, and that districts that did join that case incurred a lot of cost. But can you talk a little bit about what you hear as we move into the next level of potential, like we're really hitting a crossroad of if we do not have a supportive legislature, what then is next?
I'm not sure to answer that because the law pretty much says that you have no choice, and it falls back on the district to provide it. But I will tell you that as a member of KC, the Kansas Association of Special Ed Administrators, we have a huge advocacy group that constantly addresses, the legislature talks about it, and it's part of discussions and works with the State Department that are doing a really good job of trying to sort of kind of push that agenda and understanding that the need is there. That's what we're doing from special ed from that perspective.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I've seen some of that effort. I saw it watching the legislature, and then I recognize that there is a specific member who continually says that she doubts that there is validity to the charge that they are underfunding. So I particularly appreciate the expertise that group of people brings to the table when they show up to advocate because she's wrong.
You know,
And,
I find it interesting because you remember the post-legislative audit several years ago, and they came to Lawrence, and they didn't like the results, so they said, this is, we hired people to do this, people come in, here are the results, we don't like this, so let's do something different. So the data is there. It says it's being underfunded, people are using the money correctly, but it's underfunded. So I don't know what more you can do when someone refuses to believe something.
Thank you.
I had one additional question. So my last question is the work that was done in collaboration with KU. I did read through that report as well. Do you think that Kelly's observation about the importance of paras to our staff is the most important takeaway from the board, or is there something else? In reading that, what would you want me to be sure to take away from that report as a board member?
So the importance of paras, but also the importance of how do we support our students? Because it is about students and independence, and we do know that when you put a para, so it's not about the para, it is about the inclusion and the appropriate inclusion and the environment and general education access. Those are the things that are important, and I don't know that we want to put emphasis on the para itself as the only means for inclusion. I think that's one of the concerns, is that some people think inclusion means a para. In fact, that is considered when we think about a continuum. it's pretty restrictive. We think just by putting the student in the class, it means it's not, but when you put a para not a para, when you put an adult with a student, it really prevents that access to friends, to regular conversation, the things that students learn that we want them to be independent on when they walk out that door. And so it really is about our focus on how do we support students in our general education classrooms and in the general ed curriculum to become more independent, take more responsibility, self-determination, all those things. That really is the focus.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that.
And Kevin and his team did have our partners at KU come and speak to our building principals at a building PD to share that information with them as well.
Spoke with our principals, we had them come speak with our special education staff, and we'll offer training for our general education staff on some of those things, on how can we, it's not about a body and a person, but how do we support that? And so our parents can support that independence also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that is where we conclude. Thank you so much for all of your work and everything you do for students in our district. I appreciate you and the special education teachers that you work with.
Thank you. I didn't do that.
Do you have any announcements, Dr. Lewis?
I do. First, I want to acknowledge and thank our IT team, mainly James Jarvis, for, you notice he's sitting here now, and the IT team will be sitting here for on-demand service for board members. So thank you so much, James, for sticking it out. I also want to thank members of the public that obviously they're watching online, but also our members that are in person. It's good to have some people in person in the room. So thank you so much for staying the duration of the meeting. We really appreciate you. Oh, and next meeting, October 23rd, we'll have a workshop for our virtual school and also the public hearing of JBCC.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Move to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone